Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Alex Durante. Welcome back to the Grid Shift podcast. Excited to have everybody here today. Quick word on the name, because I know we get a lot of questions on where'd the grid shift come from. So think of a grid as any system that a business runs on. The shift is what happens when leaders decide to rewire it. And so that's our show. We talk to forward-thinking leaders across all different industries. We talk about we ask them what they actually think. We talk about their businesses, their growth, and what they're building. As I said, my name's Alex Durante. I'm your host. Welcome back to the next episode. This episode, really quick sponsor read. This episode is brought to you by Axis AI, built by operators, powered by AI, not the other way around. Most AI companies are run by people who've never actually run a business. Our guests have, and Axis AI has. We help companies find what's quietly costing them money, costing them time, and we put real systems in place to help them save time and make more money. So without further ado, my guest today, I'm very excited to have on. Her name is Molly McManus. She is the co-founder and co-owner of Yoga North in Duluth, Minnesota, an organization that's been around for almost, I think, 30 years now.
Yeah.
Molly came in originally as a student. She trained under some of the founders, and she eventually moved into ownership herself. She's a certified yoga therapist. She was the president of the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and she's built something pretty awesome with her team. Full training pipeline that certifies yoga therapists and teachers. She does retreats that she takes people to places like the Swiss Alps and Mexico, the Scottish Highlands. So very excited to have you on, Molly. Welcome to the show, and good to have you here.
Gosh, Alex, that's the best introduction I've ever had. That's fantastic.
I love it. Well, welcome in our prep call, I remember, going off of memory a little bit here, but you said something about, you said the thing about our business is it's heart and soul based.
Yeah.
And that's different than what, there's people that come on the show and they're not talking about heart and soul based businesses,
Yeah.
right? And so I've been looking forward to unpacking that, but tell us a little bit about your journey, where things are at now and what that really means when you say you guys are more of a heart-based and soul-based business.
Yeah. Well, I think there are positives and negatives to being a heart and soul based business. And there are plenty of times in my life where I wish we could be more about the numbers, but we really do hold this structure that thinks about the people that we engage with and what their needs are. I think how I came to this work, and many people came to the work of yoga therapy and Ayurveda, is through our own personal suffering or seeing suffering in the world, right? And that coupled with the desire to be more, to evolve. And I think with a heart and soul based business, that's what we're here to help people do: reduce their suffering and move into their excellence as best as possible. And so, really all of our tracks, our classes, even our retreats are helping a person move towards something that is, this higher thought of themselves.
I love that. That's a great way to explain it. Now, you started off as a student, right? And you didn't really, when you started, you were going to teach yoga. You didn't really necessarily have a plan to become, a business owner and start actually running the ship, as they say. What was that like? Was there a moment when you knew that you weren't just going to practice and teach this, but that you wanted to do something more? Like, what was that like early on in your career? Because obviously where you are now isn't where you started.
Right, exactly. And the interesting thing for me actually is when I first started training, I just did it. I thought it would take a year to really get to know myself through the original training. I didn't even think I was going to teach. And then once I started to move into really the deep study of the work, I just knew it was something that I wanted to share with other people, and that I wanted to be able to translate some of the, it was a lot of big learnings. It's thousands of years of study, into yoga and Ayurveda. And so I had this moment where I knew the need was so great in the world that it was like I couldn't deny engaging with it more, being more integral to it going out into the world, right? To,
Okay.
to help, I guess.
Right. And was there, eh, what did you, I guess how I should frame this is, what did you see early on? Because, the
Hmm.
last 10 years, yoga's been it's exploded, I would say, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And, but you were there early on. I mean, you
Yeah.
started, like you said, with your own journey, but what were the
Yeah.
things that you saw in yoga therapy early on that you think a lot of people miss out on, people that don't want to get into it? Like, what did you learn early on that made you go, wow, this really is, something that changes
Yeah.
lives?
Yeah, I think most people have an understanding that yoga is one slice of the pie that it actually is, which is asana, or those physical postures. And what yoga really is this full circle of experiences, of practices that actually support mind, body, soul. I mean, that's why we hear that trinity brought up all the time. And I really started to understand that it wasn't just about whether I could put my leg behind my head. It was more about being able to, really explore the depths of my consciousness and suffer less, and, feel better and be a better part of society in a lot of ways. And I also would say that there was something that I saw in the organization that I run now, that I own now, that I wanted to take my business experience in other realms and bring that experience to this company so that we could grow it in different ways.
I love that. So what
Yeah.
what would you say, piggybacking on what you just said, what would you say are the biggest differences from how you work now and how you see the work you're doing as an owner, right? Versus
Hmm.
before when you were a student, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to think that was a long time ago, and everything was literally paper and pen. Like, recording the classes was on punch cards that you punched with a punch, and everything was, it was really homespun and beautiful in that way, but it needed some updating. Much like what you do, Alex, right? Is help find systems that are going to help a business or help a person like move into more excellence. That's what I saw was, it was like there were some easy places where we could make better practices for the company so that we could reach more people, so that we could do better work, so we could perhaps work a little less hard on some of the things we were doing.
Right. And focus on the stuff that really matters, right? More time for
Exactly.
your clients, more time to focus on actually making an impact.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about, what I consider like a pivot, right? You, for lack of a better way of saying it, you went from more of a studio model to what I would consider a therapy model. And
Mm-hmm.
you had mentioned on the pre-podcast call we had, you said that, the way you teach it, um, it really is designed to be one-on-one rather than a class. But from my understanding, that kind of grew into having yoga therapy with three
Mm-hmm.
different levels of training. So, like, what made you go through that evolution from, you know, like traditional teaching of group
Yeah.
classes and things like that into more of a therapeutic model?
Mm-hmm. I think that just to be quite honest, what I saw in the yoga world and what I think Anne, my business partner, also saw in kind of the regular yoga world was a lot of trying to make people fit poses, and really this emphasis on body, like you have to make your body do this, and was not listening to what was happening inside, but actually kind of overriding what was happening. And so a therapeutic model more says what's going on for this individual and how can we support what might feel out of balance, what might not be happening the way they want it to, with antidote practices, with things that they can do as daily practices to help them feel better. And that's really what a therapeutic model does. And our levels of training, the three levels of training, first you would start out more teaching classes because you get used to different people, different bodies, different things that are going on. And then, you kind of progress from there.
Okay. And you know I'm curious to understand more. You said a few moments ago, you said yoga's for people who are, or for you, right? Like yoga's for people who are suffering, and that's one of the things that can help is it can help you get through whatever it is that you're challenged with in one way
Mm-hmm.
or another.
Mm-hmm.
How how do you see that showing up, in your sessions and your programs? Like what type
Mm-hmm.
of stuff, like how does it help people with their suffering?
Yeah, yeah. I do. I will definitely answer this question, I promise. But I also want to say not everybody has to be suffering to come to the practices, right? You could just
Right.
want to move into your brilliance and you don't have to
Right.
suffer to come here. So I got to say that. But to say what I do see is there is a lot of unexamined beliefs in the world. There's a lot, that kind of hold us back. There are things we don't realize that we're carrying, that I think yoga in the physical practices and in the mental practices that we do help us uncover and start to get a little bit more lucid, more clear, able to meet the world with just being more truthful about where we are in the world and knowing ourselves in that realm. I also think it can help in many ways with physical suffering. Obviously, that's what things people really think about with yoga. So that's a given for me. Like if you come to me with a hurt shoulder, I can help you with that. And if you come to me because you're feeling a lot of anxiousness in this world that feels pretty unsteady, we can build practices for that. And I see that whole gamut of things.
Yeah, no, the people that I know that do yoga, they've explained to me that it helps, like you just said, like it's not just physical, like it just helps with your
Yeah.
mindset and decompressing, being able to relax, being able to listen to yourself and
Mm-hmm.
actually, go deeper into thought. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, I think that it's good that more and more people are coming to that, but then especially for people who are struggling with something, it
Yeah.
feels and seems to me like this gives them a space to work through things with themselves. The
Yes.
world's really noisy. Like
Yes.
it's hard to get the
Yes.
time and the space to actually be able to really work on yourself and with
Mm-hmm.
block out all that outside noise. But anyway,
That's
I
great.
I know we had talked about kind of you guys becoming a little bit more lean and a little bit more efficient with changing your footprint. I think you said it was in like around 2020 or something like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
You went from a bigger model with the I think you said you guys were actually had like four classrooms that were
Yes.
above a Catholic church
A Catholic
and
school. Yeah.
a Catholic school. And
Mm-hmm.
now you guys have more of a singular space where you have a classroom and you work with different partnerships around, around where you guys are at. Like
Mm-hmm.
walk me through that shift. What
Yeah.
what did you guys learn from that? What did you have to let go? Like what did it force you to get better at?
Oh
I'm just,
man.
curious what that experience was because that's a big move.
Yeah. I mean, there was so much that shifted for us in 2020 as for everybody, right? But for us it made us move into some things that we had kind of had in our hopes. We'd wanted to be able to serve a community that was outside of just Duluth or even Minnesota or even our region. And we were forced to go online and we were forced to do it overnight, really with no planning. And that model of being online with our classes, with our trainings, it really shifted the way we operate as far as we can deliver both in person, live in person, and online really well. I believe, which I think is a pretty big skill to start to grow and have to do that really overnight when things shut down for us here. So that was a big piece there. And then once we did that, we had this huge space, many classrooms, lots of overhead, and we just started to realize it was never going to go back to that same thing. So we had to give up a space that we'd been in for 25 years.
Oh
And
wow.
yes, and you can imagine what happens. You just have lots of things and lots of memories, and a community that was there for that 25 years as well. A really dedicated community of teachers and students. And so when we moved from that space, there was a lot of letting go there. And we did go down to less teachers. We did change the footprint of our organization, we have one small yoga therapy studio in town. And then we teach at a couple of partnership places in our area and have
Yeah.
some remote locations in St. Paul with Tula Yoga and in Des Moines with Wild Ivy Yoga and in Madison
Okay.
with Stoughton Yoga. So we've got like lots of great partnerships and we actually do our trainings in those locations. So we became a bit more mobile um, after 2020 because we really had to.
See, and it's interesting because a lot of business owners, they would hear smaller footprint and they would look at it as like shrinking, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this much detail, but even when you told me before, you didn't really look at it that way. Like you and your team seem to have saw it as more of an opportunity to spread out in a more efficient way, which I think is smart. I mean,
Yeah,
brick and mortar locations are expensive, overhead's expensive, but
they are.
what did you guys see in the partnership model? I know you just said you have these partnerships with these different locations.
Mm-hmm.
How has that helped you guys expand? And what's kind of your plans? Do you guys want to have more partners and continue to be able to help more around the US, or what's that look like?
I mean, I think that would be great. I'd love to take the trainings to other locations beyond this region, kind of this Midwest region. But what we've found is, of course, when we start working with other studios or other schools and we bring our programming there, we're training people to do what we do, not just the yoga teachers coming to the training, but the faculty at those places. So they're really learning a different model of working with people. And so I think that has just expanded our reach, and it expanded the people who are have the opportunity to do the work, that are exposed to the work. And I will also say, just to say, when you brought up this idea of how the team kind of looked at things, we stopped doing things that weren't ours to do. Like I think a lot of yoga studios, a lot of places we go, well, we got to do this kind of yoga and we got to do this and we got to do that just because you want to please everybody. But we really started to see that that wasn't our work. And there are plenty of studios that do that. But let's actually lean into what we do well and
Right.
what's
Focus on
most
your
important.
core offer and what you guys
Exactly.
are good are the best. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
like so on the partnership, like if someone did want to partner with you guys or reach out and find out how they could, be a part of what you're doing, how does that model work? Just for, you never know if anyone's listening and goes, hey, we could have some
Mm-hmm.
synergy there.
Yeah, well, we have a couple different ways to do that. We can come and do workshops in other locations. Certainly that's how we've done immersions, like 3-day workshops in locations, and the studios or the organizations would host us there, and we would give a percentage back to those places of our earnings. We always try to make it a good partnership in that way. It's a pretty simple call us. We talk, we see if there's a fit between the two organizations and if there's like mindsets and if they feel like they have a group of people that could benefit from this somatic soma yoga, this idea of the slow, mindful, really retraining ourselves, mind, body, spirit, then let's do it.
Awesome. No, I love it. And we'll connect you with everybody at the end. We'll make sure that we have all of Molly's links and social medias and everything, website, all that in the description of the episode. But continue on to, you had mentioned about systematizing, or the way you
Mm.
just were talking about how you and your team really looked at it. So you're doing international retreats, right? I saw on the website you guys
Yeah.
have done things in the Swiss Alps, Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the partnerships through like One Yoga Global instead of just
Yes.
running things, just
Yeah.
by yourselves. Like what, uh, why do a partnership model that way? And how does that benefit you as a business, like bringing in a good partner to be able to do international type events?
Yeah, great question. Because we used to always, do all of the vetting and find the places and do all of that kind of work. And it was a lot of work. And then it took away often from what we do best, which is the teaching, right? The hosting, the being guides on those journeys. And so when we found Laura with One Yoga Global, it was like a dream come true because she and her team they go all over the world and they vet these places. They find really good ground guides. They find really good locations, great food, really good adventures, and good yoga spaces. And then what we do is we just have to, find some of the people come from our list. Some of the people come, they just find us online. Some of the people come from Laura. And then we just get to show up and do what we do best. And she takes care of all of that. And that's what she does best, right? She's really good at organizing these things and doing those first movements out into the world to find the best locations. And so I feel like it was just like a partnership made in heaven because we just niche into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that, like, doing partnerships, or even if it's just doing, collaborations, whatever you want to call it. Not only are you able to do what you just explained, which is focus on what you're good at and let your partner focus on what they're good at, and then bring something so much better to the marketplace, but also being able to create more of a community, more impact to more people, right? If two stronger than one, obviously.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's great what you guys have done from that aspect. Now, uh, systematizing things, right? Like,
Yeah.
you had mentioned that your real challenge right now isn't like content or, your
No.
product or being able to do the trainings, like that part. It's laying the foundation for that type of stuff. So what does systematizing actually look like for you in the day to day? Like, you have two owners, but you're doing admin, you're doing marketing, you have the curriculum, you have, private sessions, I'm sure. Like, what does systemizing look like for you guys, and how does it help?
Yeah, it's great, and we are still learning. It is, like I said, myself and Anne, my business partner, and our business manager Diana, and so it's just three of us. It's a small team, and then of course we have people that are on the outer rims of those that we work with. But in order to systematize, we do some work with traction. That's one of the things we work with, where we have weekly meetings and things like that. But we are trying to build systems where um, we know all of the steps it takes to get a training off the ground
Okay.
and promote it, and all of the things that have to happen in order for that training to go. Like, for instance, we have accreditations, we have a private career license, we have all those things. And so there's many things you have to make sure happen before a training even gets off the ground. And then once it gets off the ground, then there's the teaching and taking care of people and the mentoring and all that stuff. So we're trying to make like a big I mean, I don't want to call it a checklist, but it's kind of like a checklist where, it's you put in a date and you try to know how long out before that training starts you need to get all these different things done. And so we've been really working.
Standardized project
Yes,
management. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
absolutely.
So we are
Absolutely.
working on that. And, I think we're still in our infancy of, I mean, even though we've done, I don't know, like 60 trainings over the years, it's a lot. We've trained a lot of people. We're still trying to get better at it. So
Yeah,
that's, I think, one of the
absolutely.
things that keeps us here. No.
Right. Now, where do you feel like every business has different pain points with a lack of a system or a lack of structure?
Oh
Where do
yeah.
you feel most absent of a system right now? Like, maybe where things still depend on manual processes or are very people dependent.
Marketing.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind, social media, marketing, we're just not as good at talking about ourselves as we should be. We're not as good at getting the message out as we should be. And, we need help. Help.
Right.
So,
No, I totally understand. It was, the power of AI has really changed the game for my businesses, but marketing is something that, Access AI helps a lot of people with, but it's a struggle.
mm,
Like, it's a time
yeah,
game. And then you have a lot of traditional marketing agencies out there that you pay, very, very heavy retainers for, and
yeah,
you don't really
right.
see the output from that. And so it is what it is. Like, it's something that more and more companies, I think, are realizing, the importance of it, but there's also a lot
Hmm.
of bad actors out there. So,
Yeah.
shifting on to, as we get towards the end of the show, I like to talk about really purpose and legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And you were clear that the growth for you guys is one thing, and scaling and growing and making more profits, all that, like, that's great, that's for business, but it's
Yeah.
really about growth in human beings, I think, is what you said, and helping people find uh how to be more of a have like whole well-being instead of just
Yes.
one aspect of their life. So
Yeah.
you know 30 years in, right? Like, you've been doing this for 30 years. What does success look like for you guys now? What's that impact, or what does success look like for you for Yoga North?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So our methodology is called Soma Yoga. So Soma Yoga, which is a blending of somatics and some of the traditional Vedic sciences like yoga and Ayurveda. So just to kind of talk about what that is. And so what success I really think feels like or looks like is when a person learns these technologies, let's call them, and can root out the source of their suffering and apply those antidotes to be able to, lift themselves from it, right? Or knows how to move into something that they've always wanted to do because they've cleared the way, they've cleared the things that have gotten in their way, to doing the thing they want to do most in their life, or being the person they want to be most in their life. And we just see it all the time. Once we kind of face some of that shadowy stuff that we have hanging around in us, there's just so much more potential. And so I think that's when I feel the success, is when I just see people that we've touched in some way, whether it's through a training, a class, a private session, or even on our retreats, move into that next level of their next best self, right?
I
Their
love it.
exalted self.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, and the reality is, without clarity, it is
Yeah,
very difficult to take that jump, right? Like,
right.
we know, I'll tell you this, I know a lot of people that work out and go to the gym and they're miserable.
Yep,
Could be because they lack clarity, right? And so I think
yep,
that's an important piece
yeah.
that you guys focus on. Now, another question more on kind of the legacy part, right? What do you want the next generation of teachers and people in the yoga profession and industry? Um, what do you want that next generation of teachers that come from your training programs and people you impact? What are the things that you want them to carry forward?
hmm One of my teachers, Indu Aurora, talks about how yoga is a work in rather than a work out. And I think that really
Mm.
expresses it. And if we can remember, it's about growing your ability to have interoception, which is the ability to sense within and manage the noise that happens within and without, so I think if we can keep getting teachers that bring that sensibility to teach to a student focused way of being rather than about themselves, about
Mm.
what's my teaching, really it's about what happens for these students. And so student focused, trauma sensitive, certainly that's a big thing in the world right now that we're dealing with. But it's I think anytime we can keep directing a person back to themselves for discovering answers, that's really what yoga is about, is going back inside, and reflecting that back in the world, like it's kind of this beautiful cycle, or infinity sign is often what we use when we think about it. So let's keep those teachers helping support people moving back into themselves well.
Right. I love the way you described that, and I like the way that you described about, you know, if you're teaching because it's about me and what I teach, right? It's
Hmm.
really the best teachers I've ever had, whether it's in the traditional sense or mentors, people who have, helped me learn a new skill. It was I have people popping in my head now. It was never about them. It
That's
was
right.
always about who they were teaching. And so
That's
I
right.
think that's a wonderful thing to carry on. Now, we have a tradition on the podcast, where we end the podcast with what we call the magic wand question.
Oh
And I think
gosh.
you might have touched on this a second ago. So spoiler alert, she may have already said it, but um, you know, you you talked about the real goal being systematizing the work and making things easier so you can focus on the impact and really helping people and focusing on what you're good at. But the question is the magic wand question that we asked everyone to end the show. If you had a magic wand and you could fix one thing in your business world right now, something maybe slowing you down, holding you back, what would that one thing be that you would wave the magic wand over?
Well, I did just mention the marketing piece, and I really, I think it's just being able to get a message out when there's so many messages and so much noise, as you mentioned earlier in the world. How do we help people understand what we do? How do we do that better? And that's really what I'd love to. I mean, that's the biggest question that I think we as an organization have is how do we do that better? So
Right.
that's the wand.
I love it. Well, I mean, Molly, I think this episode was great. I really appreciate how you clearly talk about things that are beyond growth, not just surface level, not just about dollars and cents and margins. Sometimes that can get boring on the show, I'll be honest. But the heart-based and the soul-based frame that you have about what you guys are doing, the experience, just the way you guys are handling things and the way you're leading your organization is, I think, different than what the industry standard is. And I think that's awesome. Very grateful to be able to have you on here. We'll make sure that we share everything in the description of the episode. But before we go, where's the best place people can find you? Website, social media, things like that. And we'll make sure to get that plugged into the description as well.
Yeah, yoganorthduluth.com is our website. And then on Instagram, Yoga North ISYI is there. And we're also there on Facebook as well.
Perfect. Well, we will see everyone. Thank you so much, Molly, for coming on the episode. We will see everybody on the next episode of the Grid Shift podcast. Again, as always, I'm your host, Alex Durante. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.